Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us here on this Wednesday, September 17th. We're broadcasting as we always do from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. We're just under 30 minutes away from the planned launch of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Space Launch Complex 4 East, carrying the next 24 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites into low Earth orbit. As has been the case with all of the other missions that are part of Group 17, these satellites will head into a polar orbit on departure and deployment from the Golden State of California. As we're getting things started here, I want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Also want to shout out John Pisani for helping to work through some technical gremlins behind the scenes before we got ready and rolling here today. The rest of our photography team has this mission off, given that this is a West Coast venture, but they are busily preparing for launch early tomorrow morning from Florida at Pad 40. If you're not following them already, you can find them at their handles here on X. John is at John Pisani Photo. Adam is at Aburn NYC, and Michael Kane at MD Kane Jr. Also, be sure to follow Spaceflight Now simply at Spaceflight Now. You can find us on X, Blue Sky Threads, and Facebook. As I just mentioned, there is the next launch from Florida coming up tomorrow morning. Right now, looking at a departure from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station at 5:30 a.m. Eastern, 0930 UTC. Right now, though, we're targeting the upcoming launch for SpaceX from Pad 4 East at the time you see there on your screen. 8:48 a.m. Pacific, 11:48 a.m. Eastern, 15:48 UTC for those joining around the globe. This is just a little bit dipped into SpaceX's launch window today. They are fueling their Falcon 9 rocket there at the pad, so they are locked into that T0 you see there on the screen. If for whatever reason there's an issue from weather or a technical issue on the ground or on the rocket, SpaceX does have a backup opportunity for this mission coming up tomorrow. I want to thank the nearly 900 of you who are watching along with us live as we're kicking things off on a Wednesday morning. If you haven't already, be sure to click that like button and share the stream. Allow some more folks to find their way into our live launch coverage. As we're getting going, just a reminder of the rules of our live chat. We ask that you converse in English so that moderators can respond appropriately. We also ask that you hold off from delving into overt politics or religion. There are plenty of other YouTube channels for those kind of forum discussions, but this is not one of them. Also, hold off from typing in all caps. Emojis are fine, of course. We just ask that you don't create a huge block of them so it takes up a large percentage of the live chat so other people can voice their thoughts, opinions, and questions. And last but certainly not least, we ask that you treat each other with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk for a moment about the countdown timeline, the milestones that SpaceX has already come through as we're looking ahead to hopefully a good launch of their Falcon 9 rocket. T-minus 38 minutes was the point at which the SpaceX launch director made the call on the start of prop load. Fueling began just about 10 minutes ago at T-minus 35 minutes with loading of RP-1, which is a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen began flowing on board the rocket's booster. T-minus 30 minutes, the cryogenic helium load started on the rocket's first stage. Second stage helium load began about a couple minutes ago. That helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. Coming up in less than a minute is when second stage RP-1 loading should wrap up. Then at T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds is the strong back chill down process. This is when SpaceX thermally conditions the feed lines at the pad prior to loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's upper stage. Had we eyes on the vehicle at this point in the countdown, we would be seeing the so-called big vent at about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. That's a good visual indication that fueling is moving along on time and as expected. Loading of liquid oxygen on board the rocket's second stage begins at the 16-minute mark. 7 minutes out, the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines will begin. This is when SpaceX begins to flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, and that'll help to protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. 6 minutes before flight, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. And at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strong back away from the Falcon 9 rocket. First, the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then the transporter erector, otherwise referred to as the strong back, will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. And here at Vandenberg, it'll stay in that position up to and through liftoff. Three minutes out, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage about a minute afterwards. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, its automated sequence. What that means is that control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The SpaceX launch director will then give their go for launch call at T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And of course, if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and begin to burn as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket. The T0 mark coming up at 8:48 a.m. Pacific, 11:48 a.m. Eastern, 15:48 UTC for those around the world. Just about 21 minutes from now. Taking a look at our live chat here, see a number of folks joining us from California, unsurprisingly. Always good to see, though. Let us know where you're watching from today. So we've got Justin Burnett checking in from Canada. Billy Bryant from the Ozarks wrote it no last name, joining us from California City. Got Pismo Beach, Portugal, Southern Indiana, Florida, of course, Montana. Always great to see where folks are joining us from around the world. Bakersfield in the house. Terrific. 20 minutes on the clock ahead of the planned flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. No movement on our frequent flyers board here today, as the booster supporting this mission is tail number B1088, which is flying for just a 10th time. I say just like that's no big deal. Don't want to minimize 10 flights. Certainly an important piece, any bit of reuse obviously is an important piece of SpaceX's business model. Today's launch represents the 534th Falcon 9 rocket launch to date and the 117th so far this year. Taking a look at the weather over California coastline. Here's a satellite loop from the GOES West satellite, courtesy of NOAA. You can see there's a little bit of cloud and perhaps a bit of fog that's rolling into the coast. So fairly standard operating practice here at Vandenberg to maybe get a little bit of a sucked in rocket. We'll see what things actually look like once we do have eyes on the rocket coming up in less than 15 minutes. Bit of good news on that front, Stephen, just letting me know that the fog is starting to burn off at the pad. So hopefully folks will have a fairly decent view, if not of the flight itself, then certainly of the rocket prior to liftoff. Taking a look at our live chat once again, want to thank a couple folks for their support this morning as we're just about 18 minutes away from the departure of the Falcon 9 rocket from Vandenberg Space Force Base. Big thanks to my mother, Mary Robinson, for a very generous $20 super chat. Says, good morning from Northern California. Good morning from Central Florida. Also want to thank channel member Chuck Close for a very generous $25 super chat. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate you supporting us at that level. Just about 17 minutes remaining. Roughly 30 seconds left in the big vent per the timeline of things. Let's go ahead and take a moment to actually, we'll talk about trajectory in just a second here. Things have been busy for SpaceX, not only on its east and west coast launch pads, but down on the Gulf Coast as well. Taking a live look now at Starbase Texas near the US-Mexico border, you can see the next ship upper stage is perched now on top of the orbital launch mount at Pad A as SpaceX is preparing for a static fire campaign leading up to the upcoming launch of Starship Flight 11. SpaceX already performed a static fire with the Super Heavy booster 15-2, getting ready to make its second flight. This is the last of the Block 2 variant of the ship upper stage before SpaceX moves to what it calls version 3 of both the booster and of the ship. There's some big things coming with Flight 12. With this mission, SpaceX is going to be working towards a more operational style for its heat shield now that it was able to successfully fly a nominal flight profile with its last mission during Flight 10. Once again, this ship will also fly a suborbital trajectory. That is also the current stated plan for Flight 12 with the first version 3 rocket, which is set to debut in early 2026, I believe is the current plan right now. So the earliest we're expecting SpaceX to launch an orbital flight with its Starship program would be Flight 13. TBD on the exact timing of that. Of course, that will depend on the finalization of version 3 of Starship, and of course, how Flight 12 goes with its debut. We'll keep tabs on views of this ship and its static fire campaign. Again, these views coming to us courtesy of our friends at Lab Padre. For 24/7 views of this pad as well as Historic Launch Complex 39A, you can always head over to our 24-hour live stream that is Launchpad Live here on the channel. Turning back to this Falcon 9 launch with less than 14 minutes to go. As promised, let's talk a little trajectory, shall we? As we mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, this is a mission sending the Starlink satellites into a polar orbit. So the Falcon 9 rocket on departure from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base is going to fly a southerly trajectory with the first stage booster B-1088 targeting a touchdown on the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. A successful booster landing today would be the 152nd for that particular vessel and the 506th for SpaceX overall, as far as booster landings are concerned. In addition to recovering the rocket's first stage, SpaceX will also endeavor to recover the payload fairings being used on board this Falcon 9 rocket. They will splash down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean following atmospheric reentry under the support of steerable parachutes. Once down in the water, they'll be brought aboard a SpaceX recovery vessel and then brought through port and then on to Vandenberg Space Force Base, where they will be assessed, refurbished, and prepared for a future flight. Moving on to the mission at hand, this is the 24th, 24 Starlink satellites are on board this Falcon 9 rocket, and this is the 83rd Starlink launch of 2025. SpaceX is once again launching its optimized version of the V2 mini Starlink satellites, considerably lighter than the previous versions of the V2s. They still, though, have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. They use argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering, built up in Redmond, Washington, which is near Seattle. These particular satellites will be deployed at about 174 miles or 281 kilometers in altitude at a 97-degree inclination. Taking a look back at our live chat here, I want to thank channel member I'm Lita for a $5 super chat. Appreciate that. Lita says thanks for all you guys do for our viewing pleasure. And it is certainly our pleasure to bring these broadcasts to you. Just under 9 minutes remaining on the countdown at this point. Let's go ahead and talk about the Falcon 9 first stage booster that is flying this mission, B-1088, getting ready to make its 10th trip to space and back. Its first launch was in support of a mission for the National Reconnaissance Office back on November 30th of 2024. This was the launch of a couple of Starship satellites alongside 20 Starlink satellites, though the mission is noted as NROL 126. That was followed up by a rideshare mission, Transporter 12, with about 130 satellites on board in mid-January. Followed up by another rideshare mission, this time a NASA venture, featuring the launch of its SpaceX spacecraft alongside 4 smaller satellites that make up the Punch mission, launching on March 12th of this year. Next up was another mission for the National Reconnaissance Office, NROL 57. Those last 2 missions landing back at LZ4, which offered the ability for a very quick turnaround for SpaceX with this booster. So far, the fastest to date at just 9 days. Starlink land from here to the present. It's Starlink 11-13 on April 4th, 15-4 on May 13th, 15-8 on June 8th, 15-7 on June 28th, 17-5 on August 18th, and in just about 7 minutes will be Starlink 17-12. Here's a look at the booster turnaround times for this particular Falcon first stage. Just under 7 minutes to go at this point in the countdown. SpaceX has begun to thermally condition the engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster. And in now less than 30 seconds, the first stage RP-1 tank should reach flight levels. Taking a look at our live chat here, thanks to Timothy Elkington for a $5 super chat. Appreciate that, Timothy. Timothy says, love the show. Thanks, you guys, for all you do. Does SpaceX still use the shortened nozzle version of the RVAC? I feel like it's been a while since one. Thanks for the good question. We believe they still do. The reason that you see it sometimes is, of course, if SpaceX doesn't need the majority of the performance from the Falcon 9 upper stage, it can use that shortened nozzle, which, of course, is a cheaper alternative. The payloads that they've been flying as of late, though, have needed more performance out of the Falcon 9 upper stage. So, guess to your point, it's been a while since they've had a payload that doesn't quite need as much oomph from the upper stage of the Falcon 9 as we've seen them fly. Certainly, they, to my memory, have never used a shortened nozzle for any of the Starlink missions. With the launches for the National Reconnaissance Office for their so-called proliferated architecture,
tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
It does need a similar amount of full performance. Good skies over Vandenberg Space Force Base, and the good news is no fog. You'll love to see it, literally and figuratively.
Strong back lower has started.
Good confirmation there. Shortly, we'll see the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings opening up, and then the transporter erector, otherwise referred to as the strong back, which is the large gray structure to the right of the rocket. That'll recline away. You see the clamp arms now opened up. Again, here at Vandenberg, the strong back pulls away about 13 degrees from the Falcon 9 rocket, as you see it just beginning now. And it'll stay in that position up to and through liftoff. Coming up at about T-minus 3 minutes is when we should hear the call that the Falcon 9 first stage boosters liquid oxygen tanks have reached flight levels.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And with that good call out, we should be hearing a similar call from SpaceX regarding its second stage LOX tank.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
With that good call out, the Falcon 9 rocket is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Coming up shortly, we should see some additional venting for the ground gas closeouts.
Ground gas closeouts.
Good call, good visuals. This is SpaceX releasing the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines as it progresses towards the final minute of the countdown.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Now in its automated startup sequence, we're just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to confirm that they are go for launch, coming in the next few seconds.
This is the launch director on countdown 1. Hold, hold, hold. We are standing down due to weather being no-go.
And a weather scrub at T-minus 38 minutes. We don't know definitively if this was the reason, but there was some thunder heard in the vicinity of the pad heading into that final minute of the countdown. So unfortunately, because SpaceX doesn't have the ability to hold its countdown clock once they have begun fueling the Falcon 9 rocket, a hold is tantamount to a scrub. So SpaceX will now have to stand down and pivot to their backup opportunity tomorrow at the earliest, assuming the weather cooperates. Obviously, an unfortunate turn of events here for all of us, but certainly for SpaceX wanting to get that Falcon 9 rocket off the pad. The next scheduled launch at Vandenberg is coming up on September 21st, which is the launch of the next batch of, we believe, Starshield satellites for the National Reconnaissance Office. This is a mission dubbed NROL 48. Again, currently that mission is scheduled to launch on September 21st with a departure time of 10:37 a.m. Pacific, 17:37 UTC at the moment. We'll have to wait and see how this launch scrub may impact that if they need to slide that mission to the right. Again, for those who are just joining us, SpaceX has scrubbed today's launch attempt of the Starlink 17-12 mission due to a weather violation that was noted in the final minute of the countdown. Well, with this scrub, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our live coverage today. Do want to thank Timothy Elkington for another $5 super chat, who says scrubs, not ruds, or rapid unscheduled disassembly, as SpaceX likes to term it. We'll be back with launch coverage when SpaceX is in a posture to launch, which presumably would be tomorrow, Thursday, September 18th. We'll have to wait and see what the new target T0 will be for them in that backup opportunity. Again, weather permitting. Tomorrow, now set to be a double launch day, though, with the planned launch now first from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station of the Starlink 10-61 mission, with a window that opens up at 5:30 a.m. Eastern, 9:30 UTC. Weather outlook for that, fairly decent, looking at 65% favorability for launch conditions, with watch item being the cumulus cloud rule in both the primary as well as the 24-hour backup scenarios here at the Cape. We'll have live coverage of that mission beginning about an hour prior to liftoff, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and that way you'll be notified when we do start coverage. If the T0 happens to shift, we will update that both on our website, spaceflightnow.com, as well as on the YouTube channel here, of course. Want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, and photographer John Pisani for being on standby in support of this mission. Want to thank our channel member community broadly for supporting all of our live launch opportunities here. You can check out our latest member video provided by John Pisani of a really cool vantage point of the last launch of the NG-23 mission, which lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40. Channel members have exclusive views of that right now. You can head on over and catch that after hopping off this live stream. Most importantly, though, I want to thank you for wherever you've been watching from. Thanks to our moderators as well, like Rick Donner. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others. We will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.